Welcome to Construction Champions Podcast, where we are burning the house down and rebuilding it twice a week. I'm your host, Ron Nussbaum, and I am here to help you become the champion that you're meant to be. Along with our amazing guests along the way, we will provide you with the resources, the latest and greatest. You will sit down with disruptors in the construction industry. And my goal from day one has always been to change the mindset around the construction industry. No more where we let the 3%. Welcome back, Construction Champions, to another episode. I'm your facilitator, Ron Nussbaum. I am the founder and CEO of BuilderComs, and today we have a returning guest that I'm super excited for because our last conversation was amazing. But what really excites me is we're doing more of a special edition today because there's a lot of hot topics Scott is very knowledgeable on that he's going to help us suggest as a champion in the construction industry. So not as much about what it takes to be a construction champion, but how construction champions navigate right now. But before we dive into it, Scott, why don't you reintroduce yourself to all the champions out there listening?
Thanks, Ron. Appreciate being here again for a second time. I really enjoyed our last conversation. So if you haven't seen that episode, you should go check that out too. Free plug. My name is Scott Cannon. I'm the CEO of BigRentz. BigRentz is an online marketplace for construction rental equipment. We also have a product called SiteStack, which is an AI procurement platform for construction rental, but also trades and materials as well.
Awesome, man. Like I said, I'm excited. I'm going to dive in there. And like I said, I'm not going to ask the $1 million question. I'm going to pivot it right up to one of the big talking points is interest rates and a lot of things that are happening with those. I know you operate in this world. Why don't you help the construction champions understand it a little bit better and how they should be acting in this time?
Well, I think the Fed's move in September of cutting 25 basis points it's directionally the right way to go. And it's helpful. But it's interest rates, cut costs at the margins, doesn't really fix the primary problems facing the construction industry. If you go back over the last, I think it's 7 out of the last 8 months, non-residential construction's down. And the only areas where you really see growth is AI centers and some manufacturing plants being brought back on shore. But the things we traditionally would touch from a non-residential construction are suffering, and they have been really for the last 18 months or so. Labor shortages, tariffs, supply chain frictions. Those are the areas that construction companies are really struggling with, and interest rates need to continue to cut. I think we're going to see more cuts this year, but on the face of it, there are bigger challenges to tackle as well. So it's just one area that I think construction contractors need to be aware of.
What are some of those areas that you're talking about? Because there's like you said, stuff's down, but people are busy. I think it's sending kind of mixed signals on exactly what is happening. And there's a lot of people that look at the construction industry as kind of a good forecaster of where we're headed as well. So what are those areas that our listeners might not be paying attention to, but they really should be?
So let's dive into some of those. And by the way, I think our future is very bright. I think construction, just from an infrastructure standpoint over the last 50, 60 years, has lagged GDP growth. So we still have untapped need to build things and to fix things and to repair and deal with our infrastructure. Those are good long-term prospects. In the short term, the thing that contractors and any business really needs more than anything else is control and predictability on cost, right? So procurement efficiency, logistic improvements, those outweigh policy debates over interest rates and so forth. In the short term, over the last, I think it's 5 years, cost of materials have increased by 40%. That's a problem. And so like the busy activity is great, but if the margins are compressed, it really doesn't matter. We're just working harder for the same amount or even less and less money, right? Labor shortages as well. I think I read a stat that said over the next 5 to 10 years, we'll be 1 to 2 million electricians short of where we need to be. And that's a problem. And the AI data centers right now are sucking up all that capacity. So, electricians are busiest they've ever been. It's a great business to be in. But, even our Department of Defense can't get people to work on things they need to work on because AI is basically, soaking up all the availability. I think those two primary things have really impacted contractors over the last couple of years and are their biggest challenges today.
Yeah, cost is even before the uprise, it's something that can get out of hand really quickly because we're not necessarily focusing on it and the procurement of this and what are actually our costs on a project. And then when the starts to go up, it can really it can really become this crazy word because it's something we're not focused on, but then we're noticing, like you said, our margins are going down and what is causing that.
Well, think about just a weave back in interest rates for a moment and go back to cost. Think about that 25 basis point doesn't help a large contractor. Large contractors, going to be in term notes over years and years and years. So maybe it'll have some impact, maybe it won't. Same goes medium size. It helps small contractors. They might get a cut in their interest rate on their credit card, but it's really not going to move the needle. The biggest issue has been more uncertainty and predictability of cost. And so if you get that project today, you bid it out, 6 months from now, who knows what the cost of the inputs are going to be. And the uncertainty is the biggest tax on a contractor. And that's really the issue, is being able to get a control on that. Once people understand the rules of the game and they're clearly defined of this is what my inputs are going to be, this is how my supply chain is going to look, then you can start to build efficiencies and do things that set yourself apart from other contractors. But until those rules are certain, it's not predictable, the outcome. And that's the biggest tax on businesses. Um, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that does. But how do you control it uncontrollable like that? Like we can't foresee the future. How do you start to understand some of that as being a business owner?
Well, I think that there's getting deeper into the supply chain and trying to understand it, using tools to bid out your procurement. One of the things we do here at BigRentz, we have a software called SiteStack, which goes out and pulls all the costs and uses AI to basically predict what that cost is going to be and gives you a heads up compared to your competitors. It lets you help price more effectively to your customer, so you're not low bidding or in areas where you have to no bid and you just have to give a flat rate and you don't know the cost yet. It gives you a little bit more insight to where the market is. If you look at the big pro companies in the space, the Home Depots and the Lowe's, they've gone really into the distribution and the ops tech over the last couple of years. They're spending a lot of money to understand how to do the business better. So there's a ton of software products out there, from running if you have an HVAC company or whatnot. There's the Procors of the world, the service channels. There's a lot of software to use to run your business more effectively. And I think those contractors that do that set themselves apart from their competitors. Also, a lot of materials, marketplaces as well. You can't go out and replicate hundreds of vendors yourself, but if you tap into companies that have done it and understand procurement, you get the benefit there too.
Mm, yeah. So that fascinates me a little bit here when you start talking about being able to predict what stuff's going to be. Could you share some of like how exactly that works? Because that seems like that would be highly difficult, even with AI to do.
So just, using a agentic AI isn't going to solve the problem because it doesn't really understand the business. One of the things that we did at BigRentz, we have tens of millions of data points of real feedback from suppliers. So we've done over $1 billion of procurement on the platform over the last 10 years. with all that information, we build a machine learning software to go out and understand it, and then look at areas that are similar in characteristics to other areas where we've done work. Same type of population density, economic factors that look the same, and you can, within a level of, a few percentage points, really predict what the cost is going to be before we even enter a market. So when we spent we went out and spent tens of millions of dollars to develop our marketplace, and then, 10 million, tens of millions of dollars in our software. We've done the job for you. And I think if you don't start with the data, real information, you can't just use a chat GBT to tell me how much should my labor cost in, North Carolina. That's a bit of a joke. And I think we're years away from that. But if you start with companies that have mined their own information and used AI to lever that, that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it on here many times about collecting your own data as a business owner. If you own a construction company, like it becomes it as AI advances, that data becomes invaluable because that's what you can actually use to get real results. So that's what you guys have done is you have taken all of this data that you collected around this and now build AI around that. So it's not just hypothetical questions. This is like, here's the historic information with all these different points that it can pull from, and it can make very accurate predictions on what stuff's going to be. I love that.
But Ron, that's challenging for small contractors though, because then they don't have enough data outside their limited area to apply it in a way there. So that the only way to really leverage it, one, you have to collect that information. So you have to have good systems. You need to be disciplined in doing that. And then if you join on platforms where there's lots of other small contractors and it all feeds the AI to learn better, you get the benefit. It's almost like a co-op sort of opportunity. You have to kind of share the information and get together to compete against the larger companies that have their own BIM models that, have been doing this. They're at a scale that is so different than the small contractor. It's just not competitive.
So what I'm hearing you say is this is a way, I love the co-op thing too, that this is a way to compete against private equity backed that have this data from everywhere that are bringing that and they're outperforming everybody because they have this information. And this is like how we can come together as independent business owners to get the same information that a national company has individually and be able to use that in our market.
I mean, yes. I mean, that's how BigRentz was founded. I mean, the early business was more marketplace, and we went out and negotiated rates with 6,000 rental companies across the United States. So if you combine that together, we cover, over 90% of the US population in a 30-minute drive. That's the only way we can compete with the large publicly traded national providers, because they're just, the scale they have is so massive. And so we've kind of pulled, the small independents, the, 1-2 location, a couple $1 million in revenue a year, companies together to sort of compete. On the software side, we're doing the exact same thing. We're getting contractors that are of some scale, not the small contractor who's working on maybe, projects at a house. I'm talking about people who are building things, right? So, and you take those folks and you put them into a platform, our AI model starts to learn better and everybody benefits from it. And nobody's information gets shared with each other, but the algorithms get smarter and more effective. And it's a tool in the toolbox to go compete. And if construction contractors embrace that sort of mentality, they will do much better and they will be able to compete much more effectively.
Yeah, I'm all about collaboration, but that does also become one of the holdups for a lot of guys. Is like, well, I don't want this collaborative thing where I put my stuff in and then just like you say, even though other people don't have access to it, there's like this sense of protection, like we have some golden egg that nobody else has, when that's really not the truth. It's all pretty similar. And if we could get them all in one place, we would have a better understanding of what is happening within our businesses and where do we stack up.
Yeah, I mean, look, the typical contractor's EBITDA percentage is going to be between 3 and 7%. It's relatively thin. So there's very few people that have the secret sauce that's so different and unique from everybody else. And just, you have tariffs have gone up 28% this year. That unpredictableness, it throws a wrench in the whole process. So, you know, if you can try to be independent, stand alone on the island and think that you have the keys to the kingdom, but the reality is we all need tools to be more effective. And that doesn't help your competitor, so to speak. It levels the playing field by giving you the basics of bringing predictability and to me, that's the the core of what a business should be. Once you get, it's the thing you can do before you apply what's different and unique about you. You need to have predictability and control of cost. You need to understand your logistics and your supply chain before you do anything else. And then your great service or a different way you have approach of doing things can be the thing that separates you from everybody else. But we all benefit from having a healthy, network of contractors that do well. Nobody wants to see other people go out of business. It's not a good thing. It's a race to the bottom when that happens. We all need to support each other.
Yeah, and I think this is such an important message right now because I'm a big, not a big component. I understand what I see happening. And the construction industry is one of the only industries that has never had major consolidation. And we're at a verge where you're starting to see it. It started in HVAC, it started with electric, plumbing, it's moving into roofing and nationwide builders in there. You're starting to see where it's going to become really hard to compete in any form of construction as being this standalone business model. And we if you want to compete against that, you have to be willing to do stuff and be involved with groups that are going to help level that playing field, because we're not going to be able to just go out and say, I'm doing this locally, I'm doing this by myself, and then compete with the Goliaths that have all of this information. So what you're saying relates. I 100% get it, because I see what's going to happen in the next 5 years in my mind, and it's going to be this consolidation, and either you're going to be involved with it or you're just going to be fighting it.
Ron, you mentioned private equity earlier, and so I have a fair bit amount of experience running private equity companies. And where you mentioned HVAC and some of the roofing companies. You see these large private equity companies come in and consolidate those spaces. Well, their playbook is something that every independent contractor and business owner can do for themselves too. All they're leveraging a system and a process and repeating it over and over again. And they're developing some systems that, quite frankly, are on the market today. There are softwares that will level the playing field from how you run your business. I think what historical business owners need to do is lean into that and be open and willing to change with the times and embrace the technology that's there today. There's no reason that a contractor can't compete with a larger roll up. You can outservice it. You can have relationships. Those things matter in construction more than anything else, but you have to do all the other basic stuff too. You can't be 20% more expensive and expect your relationship. You have to be ballpark and then lever those things. And I'm a big component of construction champions and contractors that sort of buck the trend and do very well. And it's one of the places in our country that small businesses still thrive and do well. And that's our American dream, and we want that to continue.
I love it, man. I agree completely with that. For all listeners who are thinking this all sounds fantastic, but what is actually involved? Or what is needed from me? How do I participate in getting into, you used the word co-op earlier, so I'm going to say that, like, what is my responsibilities once I'm in the co-op so I can benefit from it? What does that look like?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say a co-op. Yeah, it was a nice word, good way to describe it, because we're all contributing together. I think the thing to do is when you get the infrastructure software that you need, lean into it, use it to its fullest capacity. But one of the things I've seen in our industry is people will buy the right tools and then not apply them the way they're intended to be applied. So they'll use them just to fix one irritant or one thing that didn't work, but they don't use it for all the other parts of the business, and they're missing out. And so to the extent of using the tools to their intention and their capacity, that's going to make them better, and it's going to put better information into do. It's as far as our company SiteStack, the thing to do is really nothing. But it's an easy setup. And we did a study with a Fortune 500 company, it's a big contractor. They spend roughly $20 million on equipment a year. We save them millions of dollars by using the AI platform. And somebody should expect to get efficiencies between 15 and 20% if you're going to invest in software.
Yeah, I agree. That is one of the problems when we start putting software in businesses, is that we don't fully utilize them. We use a very small part, and then we complain about the cost because we're not getting the full value because we're not using the entire software, and we implement one thing because we're trying to solve for one specific pain point instead of looking at this as, what does this actually do for my business? We're like, this will fix one thing. And then we get so tunnel visioned on that one thing that we never actually let the software do what it was actually originally created to do.
I mean, Ron, I was guilty as anybody else. So I grew up like everybody in this space using Excel to run my life. And even today, sometimes in our software, I'll download things and put it in Excel because I'm more comfortable with it. I know how to manipulate it. I've used it forever to build models and so forth. Look, I know when I've trusted and learned from our systems, we've always done better. And the systems, we're all smart people, right? But we're not smarter than a machine that's programmed correctly. And I've seen with AI, there are things that we should not be doing. There are things that will never be replaced. I'm not a believer that AI is going to have robots being electricians in 10 years. I just don't buy it. But there are certain functions that we do that could be done better with software. And it doesn't mean replacing jobs. It means displacing non-productive use of our time. So I think at the stat I saw one time, there's like 35% of our work week is spent on non-optimal tasks, tracking down things, looking at costs that we shouldn't be looking at. That time could be better used talking to more customers, working on projects, getting those things done faster that need to be done. So to me, it's a tool in a toolbox. It's not a replacement. And if people look at software that way, and you don't use the tool that you did to do something simpler, if you're still using a shovel when you have an excavator, you have some mental problems. You got to go talk to a therapist. I don't know what to tell you. It's not there are easier ways to do things in life.
Yeah, no, it's a tool. It should just make us better at what we do already. And that's how AI also, like, it should just be, so like at Builder Comms we don't talk about AI at all, but we have a lot of AI in the background that just automatically does things to make you better, to make the experience better. And like, that is how we have to look at this, is like, if you implement a piece of software in your business, it should make you better. It should make you more efficient. It shouldn't be something that you're looking at, it's bogging you down. We just have to change the thought process around it and then let it do what it does so you can go do what you do.
I couldn't have said it better. That's exactly right.
So with the man, you're rolling out a new piece, because last time we talked a lot about BigRentz, and now we have a whole new piece. I know you had mentioned it last time we talked. I'm excited for what you have going on. I think it's going to change a lot of things.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's called SiteStack, and I teased it last time. We had a big announcement mid-year in Fortune magazine. We did a whole piece on us, and I mean, we use traditional machine learning. It's not agentic AI. We train the models. We put parameters on it. It's time and tested. It's proven. And we've not only are selling it to third parties, but we use it ourselves to run our own business. And we've seen dramatic gains in efficiencies. We're talking thousands of hours on a weekly basis at our scale. And we've seen where customers gain between 15 and 20% reduction on their cost across the board. And it's the way that we developed it. It's not just for equipment rental. It can be used for labor cost and materials as well. So you get a holistic view of what's going on at the job site from a procurement side. And there's lots of platforms out there that do procurement and they're quite good. None of them really do construction very well. If you want to buy, 10,000 staplers, go use one of the big procurement companies. They're fantastic for that. But when you get into things that have complications, like on equipment, you have day, week, 4 week, and those change depending on how the project changes. The logistics of where things are coming from that drive the cost, because that's about 40% of the cost is the distance between the job site and where things are coming from. Unless you have a system that sort of shows you that, you're kind of playing it by ear, and you just try to use experience, and the system will beat you almost every single time. It just does. And so we're excited. It's a great product, and it's available on the market, and we're seeing a lot of interest.
Yeah, you read my mind as you were talking there. I was thinking, because I am such a component of software that came from the industry. It's how, I do what I do now. I came from the industry, and now I have a software company. I look at document crunch, what you guys are doing. Like, this is stuff that was built for the construction industry. It's stuff that there's so much trying to retrofit stuff into construction that wasn't built for it. And it puts such a bad taste in people's mouth, because they try to use something and they're like, oh, this is so, like, I can't figure it out. Well, it wasn't built for the industry. Like, it's just something that somebody copied over and made a couple of changes and and they're selling it as something for the construction industry, when it wasn't born or built by people that understand the industry, have the experience and background to do it. And that's what excites me when I hear you talk about this, because that is what I think drive the technology adaptation in the industry, is the tools that are being built specifically for us, not having to try to use something that's not.
Yeah, I think it's tempting, because if you look at construction, it's an industry that sort of lags on efficiency gains, compared to other industries. And I think people look at it and go like, well, these tools work in other places. I'll just go apply it over here, and it's not a big deal. And like I say, even BigRentz in early days, Ron was guilty of some of the same things. I mean, we had to grow up by getting kicked in the teeth a few times, and we went out and acquired companies and domain knowledge. This thing's built. We redid our entire system over the last 5 years. Most companies don't get an opportunity to do that. They build and basically deploy. This was built by the industry, by industry individuals for industry individuals. And yeah, I agree with you. If it's not, it's completely different. You have to, what about this and what about that? If you don't come from the space and you don't have experience, you just build something that's not usable.
Yeah, and I think what I think the software industry misses on this, and this is a sidebar conversation now, but if anybody's in software and they're listening to this, is I believe that if you build something that is great in the construction industry because of just the different nuances and the stuff that moves around, you'll probably never have to leave the construction market because it's big enough. But I believe that software is more applicable to other businesses and other places than pulling a piece of software from somewhere else and trying to plug it into the construction industry. I think if you start here, you have a lot different trajectory outside of the construction industry, because if it can survive the day-to-day here and be able to do it on a job site, it can definitely do it in an office environment.
I couldn't, you're right, 100%. Construction is, and I've been in the logistics space, I've been in the technology space. Construction is the most difficult industry. It is why why there hasn't been efficiency gains is because it's hard. And people have taken the what's the easier thing to fix. And construction doesn't need to be fixed. It's a great industry. I think we can help each other out and all be more efficient. and get those EBITDAs from 3 to 7% to double digit, then we all get the multiples that the other industries have, and we're doing quite well. And then, these family-owned businesses get to pass on something of substance to their, to their kids.
I love it, man. I love what you're doing. For all of our listeners, if they wanted to connect with you, learn more about everything you're doing, where's the best places for them to do that?
On BigRentz.com, www.bigrentz.com. We have an about page. It'll direct you to the SiteStack software and whatnot. I'm on LinkedIn under Scott Cannon. You can find me. I connect to anybody that wants to reach out. And our website has our contact details. So even if we're not talking about something that we're doing and you just have ideas, I'm willing to talk to anybody about anything anytime.
Awesome, Scott. Well, thank you for taking the time and being on the show again.
Thanks, Ron. I really appreciate it. It was good seeing you again, and I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, construction champions, another episode in the bag, and a special one where this is the first time in coming up on 300 episodes that we didn't ask the $1 million question about what does it take to be a construction champion. And we actually talked about things that can make you a construction champion, that if you start focusing in on and you start paying attention to, it can change your business. It's that easy. Like this is, where I've tried to take this a few different times, and Scott's the first one that was on board to have this conversation. It's out of the box of how our typical shows flow. Because I think it's always important to ask the question, what makes a construction champion? But it's also important to talk about how we think, what we do, what are the moves we need to be doing, what's the future look like for us, and focus on that. Because action is what matters. We can talk in theology all day long about what makes a construction champion, but unless you put action behind that, and Scott is able to come on here and give you actionable things like pay attention to this is what's creating this outcome, this is how we can come together to take on the big corporations, this stuff's gold, and you need to pay attention to it. And I look forward to doing more episodes like this in the future where we really talk about what's happening right now and how to traject it as a champion. So until next time, be the champion you're meant to be.